Good morning, Misfits. You were tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. The boys are back in town.
Good timing.
Oh, man. I thought I nailed
What are you
it.
doing over there, Buzz Aldrin?
All right. Welcome back, guys.
Good to be back.
How you doing, Sherb?
I'm feeling great.
Sherb's a little loopy today.
Post Wodapalooza travel got us back here pretty smoothly, actually. It was a really smooth trip back to Maine, but it's always that layover period of getting back into your groove. So it was a little funky getting back into it, but I'm starting to feel like I'm back to my normal self again.
I got into a fight with a printer on Monday. I
heard it was upside down, the tray.
No, it was backwards.
Oh, my bad.
But technically it wasn't backwards because I tried that too. I printed, the issue is I like to print on cardstock. I hate the fucking A4 paper. It just rips. It's a WZA, it's a woozy. I don't like it. So I print all my things that I'm going to keep for like a week
High maintenance
on cardstock.
It's going to be glossy cardstock.
Some Patrick Bateman shit.
That's right. Bone, Romalian type.
Wait, sorry, keep going.
I keep it next to my chainsaw. And yeah, the printer jam typically is right at the beginning, or it's coming out the back, or you can just sort of pull it out, right? This printer jam was in the depths of the printer.
Files were in the computer.
Yes, the files were inside of the computer. The page was not sticking out of anywhere, so I was like pulling it by the middle. So I followed the instructions to take the printer apart, and then bright and early, no caffeine, I could not put the thing back together. And like, I like taking things apart, putting them back together. I tried every which way, and it got to the point where I had ink all over me and was behind schedule.
I was crying.
I was crying.
Fetal position.
So I just messaged the warehouse crew and was like, I broke the printer. Like, and I can't fix it. I'm sorry. And then Ted just put the tray back in and like,
it's better than last time Ted was summoned for some help when it was like, have you tried turning it on?
Yeah, Ted had to drive from his house to turn a monitor on once. That did happen.
Wow.
But now, yeah, I'm also back in the groove. I did have to go back to the old school alarm clock, which I don't like doing. I don't like that noise. I don't like the vibe. But I got to I have to be in a routine.
Check your alarm clock.
Exactly.
Throw it out the fucking
Well, it's
window.
like, you know, it's like a true
noises are
alarm
terrible.
clock. Because I found, see, that would be dope.
That would, you can, it's 2022. There's
Yeah,
no way
absolutely
you
can.
can't.
Hold on
Yeah,
though. So
come on.
the alarm clock that I
Not
use
on
is very
Spotify, though.
specific. It can dim all the way down to nothing. There's no lights. You know, you guys know how I am about that.
Yeah.
Sherb and
Very
Ted will
well
know this reference. This guy doesn't know who Neil Young is. Who definitely doesn't know who Black Star is. Every day that I was at Endicott College, which is like 10,
10 days
in my dorm room.
All 8 days.
My alarm clock was the Lord have mercy, and my roommates hated it so much. They were football players with no classes.
My roommate
basically.
jokingly made the scene from The Office where Michael is just like, "No, God, God, no!"
That was
As
his
the
alarm clock?
Oh
at
my
like
God,
6
this is so
a.m.
terrible to wake
Took
up
us
for
like
each day.
2 days, and we just like threw things across.
He throws
the room
phone
at
out the
him.
window.
I was like, God, fucking damn it!
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, one of the things I actually like about the Whoop strap that we got recently, the newer ones, is that they do that vibrating
Is that
one.
the heart
so it doesn't-
rate never is accurate? Is that what you like about it?
I won't get into that, but the alarm feature is really nice. So if you like a really nice alarm that you can get every month.
Does it vibrate?
But it vibrates.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's really nice about it is you can set it for 3 different like settings. You can either like... I had an Apple Watch for a while, but unfortunately it's no longer with us. It's since passed on to the
It's with his
grave.
Beats headphones
Yeah.
from episode 100 or whatever the fuck.
It's spiked under the ground, unfortunately, like my headphones. But the vibration feature is nice because you can set it for a range of time, which tries to catch you when you're in that like more alert part of your like sleep, when you're that like really light sleep, which I actually found is pretty nice because it's not jarring you out of your like dead sleep, which is the problem with most alarms. Is like you feel terrible when you first wake up because you're probably in deep sleep, and it's like, get the fuck up, and you're like, I'm dead asleep, and this is the worst time to be woken up. So
Yeah, I don't want my phone or watch in the room for distraction purposes, and then I'm the type of person, like, if I can check what time it is in the middle of the night, I will. Like, I
can't look at my phone.
I want to know. Exactly.
the
So
second I look at that, I'm up. So I don't ever look at that thing.
I had the 8 sleep thing, and that was nice, just in terms of that had the haptic alarm on it, so it actually had
Does
a
that do
buzz.
half the bed or does a full bed like? I don't know.
No, it does your half.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
two
nice.
different users.
My wife would hate that if I did the whole bed.
Now I have the Chili Sleep Ooler or something like that, and the only thing that you can do is the way that 8 Sleep actually recommends that you wake up is through heat. So my Ooler goes up to 70 degrees from 60 at like 6:30 in the morning, and then you slowly come out of sleep because your body can't get into deep sleep anymore.
One of the things that happens naturally with cortisol, right?
Exactly.
As you wake up first thing in the morning, you tend, I mean, I noticed this kind of anecdotally, but every time I get up, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of hot. I like pull the blankets off, but like just essentially exacerbates that effect so that you actually want to get up out of bed.
So long story short, I'm getting
clocks.
up on time again. I know you guys needed to know that.
You're gonna sleep
you were
on,
wondering.
you're gonna sleep on a printer.
Long story long. So while we are recording this, it is week 4 of phase 4. It will be dropped in week 5 of phase 4. And I don't know, it's just more of the same. People are talking about their 1K C2 bike splits, and they're talking about specific, the chatter in the first run of the Discord has been about Metcons, and that's just again a culture. Yeah, it's a culture thing that we've worked long and hard to try and make happen, but the right athletes and the right people in the community are really realizing that if they dig in and pay attention to those things, that's what's going to move the needle for them. Gas tanks, win championships, that sort of thing. So seeing those conversations and people bragging about 15 1K splits is
I love people getting fired up about a tenth of a second across, 15 1Ks, which is, we're looking at like 30 minutes of work. People are arguing over who got 1/10 faster than somebody else, which again is the whole point behind that stuff. The idea behind that Discord channel is to get athletes excited about that conversation of, hey, here's where I am, where are you at? And that like brings back the old school, like message board vibe that we used to have on our website that we've been trying to cultivate again for a long time. So we're really looking forward to that to kick off and be a place where you all can kind of meet, share scores, and talk about strategies and whatnot.
So technically, because we are living in the past or the future, the Discord is now open to the public. So make sure you download the Discord iPad, iPhone, desktop. You can download the Discord app in any of those places. It's a lot easier to use, I find, than you can use the web app. You can just go to the Discord website. But I find that the app works a little bit better. And again, the idea is you go into the Discord and we have our community chat, we have questions, we have suggestions, but then we also have each program broken out into its own channel. And if you go into that program, the idea would be to have conversations about specific workouts, what your times and scores were, trying to compare things to other people. So we're trying to, I think it's going to take a little while for that behavior to sort of take hold. But even now, just with, some, remote coaching athletes, sponsored athletes, we're already seeing that conversation take place. So to open it up to a couple thousand people is really exciting.
Yeah, I want to put that out there as almost like a challenge for our Misfit community out there, is that if you're looking for that online community you've been dying to find, because that's a pretty common question, is how do I find fellow Misfits to compare scores with, like, outside of Misfit camps or meeting us at like Wodapalooza. This is the best place for you to kind of come and connect with each other and kind of create your own pods, whether that's exchanging phone numbers there or just kind of keeping that conversation right in Discord. We want you all to connect with one another there and use that to your advantage, because the community is what pulls each other along here. Being the lone wolf is a strategy that some athletes think is like going to keep them training at a higher level than others, but the best compete often, and we need to be competing at some level throughout the season so that we don't show up to a Wodapalooza and be like, ugh, like I thought I was going fast. Turns out I wasn't going fast. So the challenge is get in Discord, start sharing scores, build that community, because that wants to be our like one channel for everyone to kind of connect with each other as well as us.
Yeah, and we are, if it's not live at the same time, the Team Misfit, the affiliate one, will be as well, like this week. So we're publishing out kind of the link for you subscribers out there. We're gonna keep it to just subscribers for the time being, with the potential to open it up later on. But we want to give all the subscribers of the affiliate program a place where they can come in, talk shop between each other, ask us questions, because we realize sometimes the programming, may have nuances that we thought everybody understood, but maybe it's just terminology that we use. But that's going to be exciting as well for the affiliate side.
Yeah, the affiliate side is very interesting because I think you, with the athlete side, you wonder what the interest level is, and is this person trying to go to the games? And even if, you know, some people are students of the game and some people still want everything sort of laid out for them. Whereas on the coaching side, like, I get excited because I know we're going to go into a community of people and talk shop with like you, that has to be your passion.
Absolutely.
Like, there's nobody out there making, you know, a cajillion dollars coaching CrossFit. So there's the passion there. And there's the idea that, like, I get to wake up every morning and help someone have the best hour of their day and literally go change lives and make the world a better place. Like, having that level of passion for what you do, but also feeling like you're on an island maybe, can be tough. So being able to go into a group and talk to other people about that stuff, I think is really cool.
For me, I'm at least as passionate. I think that's probably for everybody, that about coaching other coaches or trying to help other coaches
absolutely.
as well, just as much as I am about, you know, working with athletes specifically. So
You want to continue to develop that vibe amongst the entire community here. Like, being the best coach and then everybody else being like an average coach doesn't make more people want to do CrossFit. You want to rise the tide, so to speak, so that we're all excited about delivering an awesome hour to people. So more people will come to us or come to your affiliates and learn, you know, the power that comes both physical and mental from going to a gym and experiencing what we do day in and day out at the CrossFit gym. So anything to kind of rise the tide for everybody is going to make everybody's life better, and it's going to make the community healthier. So I'm all for it.
I got one public service announcement and one frequently asked question. So public service announcement, you are really starting to get into the meat of the volume squat cycle. If you are not following phase 4 right now, you can sign up to follow phase 4. You can also, with a pro or complete membership, download the squat cycle that we're talking about. It is our favorite
template,
and as a weakness template. It is our favorite squat cycle, just in terms of getting someone to really honestly overreach in a big way and trash their central nervous system to come back, you know, as a stronger athlete, not only in the squat, but stronger legs, stronger midline. And when you do that, you know, a lot of things happen sort of behind the scenes on a cellular level when you're doing that to your central nervous system. So the PSA for that is, as you're getting into the meat of it, you're not going to be able to guess the day where not doing your warm up is going to give you an injury, or not doing your cool down is going to make it so you can't warm up that next time. So really, just we've got a bunch of different things out there, whether it's reels, YouTube videos, the behind the programming stuff. Just go pay attention to that, get some suggestions for how to warm up and how to cool down, and get the most out of this. If it's just like going into the gym and banging your head against the wall isn't going to do it. So just a public service announcement, please warm up properly, cool down. Do not be afraid of warm up reps. You know, if you're feeling tight, one of the best things that you can do, throw an empty bar on your back and do 20, 30, 40 squats, you know, broken up into a few sets.
I mean, it's a great opportunity for someone to experience what we always talk about with intensity, is like freedom, and intensity is what matters more than anything else. If you warm up correctly, execute a 5x5, 4x4, or 3x3 with the intent that we ask you to, and then to cool down properly, there's a good chance that you might not want to do all that much more, which is exactly the point behind it. We are trying to create a specific adaptation, and to get you to overreach and have that adaptation occur, you have to be very uncomfortable. And this is just, again, a chance to prove to yourself how effective something like, I just went into today and I did the volume squats and I hit one piece really hard, I cooled down and I left, and I was able to keep training at a high level throughout the entire week, versus I did a great job on Monday and then I did a great job at the end, kind of cooling down. So Tuesday wasn't great, then Wednesday was worse. I tried to recover Thursday, but now I'm not that great. It just puts you behind the 8 ball. So again, the reason why that's so important is that it's going to allow you to execute at the highest level, but also allow you to train at a high level throughout the rest of the week instead of just that one session.
Frequently asked questions, still getting a lot of questions about Maffetone work. 2 answers. 1, don't overthink it. Follow the warm up. The formula for what your heart rate is 180 minus how old you are. I am 35 years old. 180 minus 35 is 145. I try to stay at that exact heart rate the entire time I'm doing my session. So again, the overthinking is, but my Whoop says this is my zone 2, but this chart says that. We are talking about specifically your blood lactate levels being below 2 millimolar. There is a correlation between heart rate and that, but it is not an exact science. So just don't worry about it. Don't don't let the idea that your phone is telling you you're in zone 3 or zone 1 get into your head. Go in and do that work. We've done enough of it with our remote athletes, with our games athletes to know what the advantages are. So just keep at it. And then the other piece is some people are having trouble getting their heart rate to a certain place on the C2 bike. I have 2 answers for that. One, go do another machine, right? So there's a pretty good chance that if you can't get up to your heart rate, that you're already fairly efficient on the C2 bike. So when in doubt, run for sure. Like you're going to get your heart rate up. We have athletes that run, close to a 6-minute mile for like a 10K, and they can get their heart rate up. So I think you can. And then the row and the ski, you just have to make sure. I think when people go slow, they slow down their strokes per minute as well. So they might do some of those bigger, longer pulls and they're not able to get themselves there. So make sure that you're paying attention to keeping your stroke rate up, both on the rower and the ski erg. And then if you're like, actually, I'm not very good on the C2 bike, what we do is we have you do a session by feel. So you go in and you just ride at a place where your legs aren't burning really bad, and check the wattage. And then the next week you either stay at that same wattage, you add 5 watts or you add 10 watts, and you work through linear progression just like you would anything else. And we've had athletes go from 190 watts to like 260 watts, and still stay below that. If you do that though, you still need to pay attention to your heart rate, because you could end up working yourself into that and not pay attention. So let's say you progressed all the way to 230 watts that you're holding the whole time, and then you look down and you're above your Maffetone heart rate. That's when we have to be careful of that. One anecdote to finish up. This weekend, I took a cardboard box that some coffee came in. I cut the top and bottom off, and I slid it down over my monitor so that I could only see my RPMs. And I have for the C2 bike, now they send you this thing that slides over the top that your cell phone goes in. So I can only see my heart rate and my RPMs. Wasn't taking my own advice. Got a little carried away with staring at the wattage.
It's fun to compete.
And I had the most consistent session that I've ever had. All I could see, I'm a fast twitch athlete, so I got to make sure my RPMs are high enough. So I just make sure that I set basically go to the damper and set it to a place where like the slowest I would ever go in Maffetone at least gets me 80 RPMs. And then it's set to that, the thing goes down over and you ride, and you really start to find those moments where it happens more often in running, but it was nice to have it happen on the bike where you get in the zone to the point where that same wattage takes you down 3 or 4 beats and you're in sort of that flow state, in that, whatever runner's high that people talk about. The only thing that matters here is that you have, 80 plus RPMs, that your heart rate's at this spot.
Not to belabor the Maffetone stuff, but I answered a question for somebody on their that like I can't get my heart rate up on the C2 bike. And what I said is like, I'm willing to bet a lot of people who are having that problem are not actually doing the warm up. So like that's a huge part. Yeah. You can't, if you just hop on a C2 bike, just the nature of the bike and how localized the muscular fatigue is, being just like predominantly in your thighs, you're not facilitating your body's ability to circulate blood and kind of get your heart rate up if you just hop on the bike and just start pedaling.
Your body's not going to understand. It's going to pull the blood in your legs, and it's going to hurt.
Pull blood into your legs. It's going to hurt, and it's not going to elevate your heart rate. So, and you can warm up on multiple machines, because I've anecdotally also had sometimes trouble getting my heart rate up once I figured out how to warm up, which is like a combination of running, C2 biking, and rowing before my C2 bike session. That gets my heart rate up, and that sets me up to do well on the C2 bike. The other thing is you got to get comfortable putting that damper all the way down and increasing, or basically messing around with your damper and
right.
RPMs.
You got to find out, because you and I are opposite on
exactly,
this.
Yeah. So like I have to bike it like roughly 100 RPMs, and it's become comfortable for me. And like when I go down to 95, I look at my legs and it feels like I'm going slow, but that's still pretty high. But I have I'm on like a 1 damper at 100 RPMs. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but you got to adjust that a little bit, mess around.
We're gonna
with
do a
it
whole
before
episode on
you-
the law of accommodation. Isn't that shit crazy? Like if you had first gotten that bike and you treated it like anything else, you would have been anywhere from 60 to 80 RPMs, depending on what the workout was.
Yep.
And you're on it for a few months and it comes up here and there as bitch work or in an interval in a Metcon. And then the first time someone told you to hold 100 RPMs, you'd be like, are you out of your fucking mind?
I mean, that's
what are you talking
That's
about?
basically what you told me. I
Right,
was like,
and
I
then-
can't get my heart rate up. And he
right.
was like, get those RPMs up. And I'm like, I'm at 90 right now.
Right.
Not good
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough.
So, honestly, again, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about it a lot. I get multiple messages a day about Maffetone stuff. Now, I'm not mad about that because again, this is the type of stuff that moves the needle. So if you're willing to sit on a machine or go run or be on an air runner, if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to talk to you about how to make sure that it's going well for you. But at the same time, we don't want to make it more complicated than your warm-up's 15 minutes. Your working time is at 180 minus your age and your cooldown's 15 minutes. It's not like the most complicated thing in the world. And then, it's kind of funny. So we talk about this every once in a while, but competition block 1, which takes us through quarterfinals, has been programmed. Half of competition block 2, which is semifinals prep, which is actually 10 weeks long, which is interesting because there are people getting ready for, mid-May and people getting ready for all the way through June. So we got to make sure that there's a plan for every single person that qualifies. So all of that is in there. And I don't know, it's just fun from the coaching perspective to switch gears a little bit and think about what an athlete would need to do to really like fine tune and sharpen things to the point where they're ready to go out and do the best that they can. And then again, this is probably just an anecdote for sure, but I slept on King's Disease 2. I listen to one album when I do a phase. It just gets me in like a trance, like the same, 10 to 15 songs play over and over. And I don't know if we have any rap aficionados, any Nas fans out there, but he's obviously great. One of the best of all time. A lot of people say he's the best of all time. But a lot of his albums, the beats are just boring.
He's got my favorite album that exists in rap.
Illmatic
is my favorite album. But I mean,
it's,
that and Aquemini are like really high up there for me. But the Hit Boy vibe.
He's ready.
The Hit Boy vibe
He's
in King's
ready.
Disease 1 was like really good, but like there were some tracks on there that were very good and some tracks that I thought missed.
It was a little sleepy for me. I don't know what it was.
He brought him back, and I actually really do like King's Disease 2 as well. But Magic's also a really good album, and supposedly he teased King's Disease 3 coming up too. So
He dropped another album on fucking
Yeah,
Christmas Eve. I'm not even through the.
it's just so strange. Like the rhythm at which like rappers put out albums now is much different than before. It'd be like, hey, coming in 3 years, my next album is now. It's like I just did an album 6 weeks ago. I'm about to do another one real quick.
So I know this is the content that the people want, but
sure.
King's Disease 2 is now in my 2021 top 5. I'm just
Lauryn Hill joint's so good.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I want you guys to know that I have listened to the entirety of Illmatic.
Proud of you.
Thanks.
What's your favorite song? You got one from that album?
I mean, it's been a while.
He's only got.
I'm impressed if you remember name of one song from that.
Illmatic. Suck me. Next.
I don't think that's a song. From the album.
Isn't there a song that's related to something that's right in front of his face right now?
Yeah.
What do you have in front
I
of your
don't
mouth right
remember. Microphone.
That's the name of the song, Microphone.
Microphone.
Yo, I only
love
got
that
Microphone.
song by Nas, Microphone.
Microphone by Nas.
All right. Wodapalooza recap episode. So, a lot going on at the old Wodapalooza.
That's
We
an
A
have
lot of unanswered emails. Wodapalooza. Still waiting on responses.
I knew he was going to short circuit.
Yeah.
My email.
Hunter refuses to do this podcast until all of his athletes' scores are updated.
Yes.
That'd be
that's
nice.
Correct. That would be nice.
He's on
for
strike.
Athletes to know where they
What place
actually
they came
finished.
in. Yeah. So it's funny. We haven't had a trip like that in 2 years. So there's so many directions we could take this podcast, right? So the fun part, the easiest, the best part of this is we got to see a bunch of misfits that we haven't seen in a very long time or hadn't met before. That's something that from, I would say, 2012 to 2018 or 19 was like a massive part of the identity of our company. was going to training camps, was going to competitions, was being accessible to the people that follow our programming. So when you put us on an island, I mean, we're up in Maine, so we're already on an island, sort of.
Half a year.
Not literally.
It's an island?
Maine is an island? People will probably believe that. That's the fucked up part. No one knows where we are. I remember every time I went on vacation as a kid, like, people would be like, where? Canada? Europe?
Yeah, we're in Europe.
What? You
I've
don't even...
had people ask me where Maine is.
Yep. Yeah. But so that part of it is great to be able to get back into doing that. We have training camp coming up in March. We have semifinals, we have the games, we have more training camps. So there's ways that this is going to continue to happen, but being able to get back into that was great. Then you have the whole world of balancing Sharpen the Axe booth, coaching athletes, networking, if you want to call it that, torrential downpours, tornado warnings, keep the booth open long enough. You're not allowed to have dinner. There's DoorDash
dinner?
has never given
It's
you
worked really well for us. We should tell those stories of DoorDash while we were gone. I don't think we had one single meal that was fully delivered accurately.
No, we didn't. We did order an insane amount of shit though.
Yeah.
Like go to a taco place.
I
it's
was
like you ordered
actually
84
remarkably
tacos.
surprised at how much of our order we
Was
actually
correct.
got.
Yeah.
I was like, "There's no because I don't really
Oh,
use."
speaking
I
of
don't,
order, he's missing some of it. You can tell him about Yardbird.
No, I'm not going to.
Sensitive topic.
I don't do like food deliveries for myself very often. I was like, when we order that, and I'm like the last person to get the phone, and I'm like, you have 48 items, and I was like, there's 0% fucking chance we get everything.
PF Chang still owes me 14 packets of gluten-free soy sauce.
Damn soy sauce packets.
So yeah,
Found a razor blade in there too.
that is true.
It's for flavor.
Yeah, it was seasoned. A little crunch.
All right, so coaching takeaways. I don't know if you guys have stories, anecdotes, highlight, low light, but like coming back from Wodapalooza, trying to recap what it was like to be there for the actual competition itself. What you got?
Having the opportunity for an athlete to check in where their training has gone after a long layoff, like with Jenna and Sophie specifically, they qualified for the CrossFit Games last year. And then there's that like period after the CrossFit Games where you're healing and like getting back into it and like recovering basically from that super stressful like competition season. Things are a little bit of layoff and you kind of ramp back up and then you're wondering ahead of things like the open quarterfinals, semifinals. Do I still have it? So
Right.
There's an opportunity for them to go out there and kind of see where their competitors are lying. And being that they're teenagers, they're rapidly changing, like they're growing as athletes. So things happen very fast. So a nice opportunity to see where they stacked up against the rest of the field. The division's a little bit different than the open qualification, but there were a lot of takeaways from the weekend about, how we prep for a competition, how we prep for an event, how we execute an event. And I think both athletes left Wodapalooza, even though they were upset they didn't get to do their final, with a lot of information to take home and to think about moving forward. So this past weekend, we debriefed on Sunday and we just I talked to both of them for about 30 to 40 minutes about, take me through the entire weekend, event by event, tell me something that went well, something that didn't go well, and something that you learned going forward. So the big message for Jenna was learning to compete more often. Like it's very fun to put yourself in a training environment where you compete against your buddies left and right, but a lot of those athletes aren't going to be your competitors. So there was an element of what's it like to actually be racing the people you're going to need to race to try to get on the podium and, Madison come August again. So the conversation really spurred around how to compete a little bit better. So she was very, very in tune with how her body did in places that we could pick up time and make changes. So to see her take the time to make that happen is a big maturity aspect and something that we really harp on with Athlete IQ is, once you're done something, you want a blank slate. You have to synthesize that information and then use that information moving forward. And then conversely for Sophie that we talked about was just the day-to-day grind of she loves to compete. Training isn't always going to be something that she wants to do 15 pieces a day with, but learning how to bring a little bit more element of the competitive aspect of a competition back to training so that when you go to compete, it's not this completely different element you never practiced before, but it feels like any other day in the gym.
So if someone's listening to this and maybe they aren't at the level where they think they need remote coaching or they can't afford remote coaching, if you have, what's the template for them to reflect on it? Is it as simple as what went well, what didn't go well, and what did you learn, like that sort of thing, or
That was
what sort of
a general
recommendations?
framework for that, but like to use the second event, which was the Bayside Chipper for Jenna. Hunter and I were sitting in the stands at the Tina Hills or whatever it's called, and 3, 2, 1, go. It was 48 box jump overs, then 24 step overs and whatnot. And as she was working through her box jump overs, one of the things Hunter turned to me and said is like, why does she look like she's a little too in control in the box jump overs? And I was like, Jenna's very well in tune with how she moves through workouts. So she had the opportunity to kind of feel this out in practice. And she basically stayed just behind the bulk of the pack in that movement, because we discussed out there like the two things that are going to make the biggest difference were the step overs and the burpee box jump overs, which were both for 24 apiece on the other side of the rope climbs. And has she gone through that? She actually made a lot of moves in the back half of the workout because she stayed in control in the front half.
Right.
But the conversation we had after was like, it's nice that you stayed in control and you made up some time at the end. But what happens if you turn that like psycho gear on you had at the very end when you were ripping out like 48 kettlebell deadlifts in like 10 seconds? What if we turn that on a little earlier? Would you be able to sustain? And she's like, I don't know. I don't do it more enough in training. And I'm like, there's the nugget. There's the bit of information that we got through this conversation of, all right, we found the linchpin in why you didn't do better across the entire weekend. Now let's make sure we sprinkle that a little bit more into training. So I really do like the framework of like what went well, what didn't go well, and what did I learn? Because as you talk yourself through that, either by yourself or with somebody else, you usually can kind of suss out that information that does end up being valuable kind of in your training moving forward.
To your point, I think that's a good lesson, because we also talked to one of the other athletes competing in a different division about how they were like, I was basically how they approached their like bear crawl, was it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was very clear that they were thinking about the event as if it were like almost like a training piece.
Right.
And the relationship there is like, hey, when you're on a competition floor, when we talk about this a lot, it's not about what's like, I'm going to go at my pace. Like, I'm going to go at what's comfortable for me. I'm going to run my own race. It's like that works to a certain point, but you're not racing against yourself. You're racing against other people. And if you're at the end of the event, it's just like, well, I ran my own race. It's like, well, it wasn't good enough, like straight up, or your strategy was bad, or or maybe more so in training, you're not reaching past that often enough to kind of set yourself up for that competition success. So understanding, with athletes in training, like, running your own race is good, and focusing on the things you need to work on, or like, specifically isolating part of a workout in order to get better at it. Like in competition, it's like, do whatever the fuck you need to do to win.
In practice, what you're saying is right. Maybe you do decide in training to pick something that's intentionally maybe sabotaging the rest of the workout because it's going to allow you to work on something specific. But that's the hard part here, is we have to have almost like a complete separation of what training identity or training strategy looks like versus testing strategy. And the whole point behind training strategy is to learn what you can then put into testing, and hopefully that the environment and the spirit of competition can raise you that extra 5 or 10%. But like, you have to be able to separate the idea of like, I'm doing this for like, I'm trying to get better at my handstand push-up, my handstand walk in this instance, versus like, I don't care what the form looks like. I'm trying to do this as fast as possible. And obviously we want to have some semblance of form as we blend those two things together. But knowing those are two different switches almost is important.
Well, I'll give you an example to kind of, unless you want to chime in at all, but for me, the relating to that specifically. So Kelly, who finished 4th, quote unquote, in
Not
her
officially
division.
in the leaderboard.
Yeah, Wodapalooza, find me. The event that she won, the Celebrate 10 with handstand push-up, overhead squat, muscle up, really fun to watch her do. But she, handstand push-ups are something that we've been working on basically since the day we started working together, because she's got a little bit of the overextension, kind of butt against the wall thing that we talk a lot about. And it was like, and that workout too is perfect for like somebody who moves poorly in handstand push-ups, like low back gets tight. Oh, let's overhead squat. Well, now my handstand push-ups, and it's like the compounding
at the
effect.
affiliate level, that's the low back special. Overhead squat, handstand push-up.
Absolutely. So the workout came up, and we were like continuing to work on handstand push-ups, and she did a terrific job about like slowing down, and like basically her capacity is 60% of what it was before as she's working on them. We were at the gym, the gym kind of on primer day the day before, and she was like, hey, so strategy on this, when should I like go back to doing handstand push-ups my way? And she is an experienced enough athlete where I told her, I was like, you do whatever you need to do to win. And also knowing that that was a potentially that's a good event for her. She loves overhead squatting. She's very strong. Muscle ups and handstand push-ups aren't bad. They're not they were trying to improve them technically, but the messaging was like, understand that what I'm trying to do is like make this type of workout easier and better for you, but for the sake of competing, like let's check in with where you're currently at and like do whatever you need to do to try to get the best score possible. And she, unbeknownst to her, turns out her handstand push-ups weren't like that bad. There's still some room to improve, but she thought she was completely disregarding the 2 months of training that we had done leading up to that, was going to completely revert back to her old style of handstand push-ups. And when we did our debrief, I was like, hey, I wasn't going to say this to you in competition because I didn't want it to like any sort of like mental, like, what am I doing sort of thing to occur. But they didn't look that bad. And I suspect that had at least something to do with the fact that you won the event. You were the only woman in the division to finish the event itself.
Right.
So that was probably one of the high points. Both Brady and Kelly taking an event win was certainly the high point for myself. But from the debrief perspective, I gave them kind of those two athletes a similar format to what you did. Like, hey, things that I thought went well, things that I want to improve. And then I also told them like, hey, let me know if there was something that you would like from me as a coach. Cause that was also my first time coaching Kelly in person. First time Brady was doing like an in-person big competition. I've worked with him in the open and quarterfinals, but in a live setting, a little bit different. And I think that for me is more, I don't want coaches to think about that as like you are just like bending to the will of an athlete, because that's not it. But there is that mutual level of like, hey, the way that you were communicating with me was not working for me. Or one of the things that I told Kelly before, like kind of giving her a little motivational speech sort of thing, which by the way, like wasn't really sure which direction to go with that, whether it's more like the rah, 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 or just kind of like a more stoic sort of approach. And I told her to like drag the field behind her. Cause she's like, she had a little bit of the imposter syndrome of like, I've been a team games athlete. I've been a high level semifinals athlete. Like, do I belong on the competition floor? And I was like you're trained, like all of those things prove that yes, you do. Like, and women are going to be looking at you like, fuck, I have to line up next to her.
Right.
And the goal for her is to be like, you're not looking around left and right to see like where those people are. They should be looking forward at your back. Like, fuck. And the bottom line is she was like, I like that. I like that specifically. I'm not like, she's a very like eyes straight forward, like in the zone. Ted, I, and Lance, her husband, were talking about it in that workout where she was just like, just straight up Terminator mode. Right. And so we learned.
I'd say the important part of that too is that the learning didn't only occur on the athlete side, it also occurred on the coach's side.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
To sort of further explain what I did earlier with the teenagers is that I asked them to do that, but I also did the exact same thing, both from the perspective of what I thought they could do better as athletes and what I could do better as a coach. Because a common question we get, we got it at Granite Games a couple of times, people who are interested working with athletes for the first time is like, how do I get this person ready? And part of it is guess and check and learn and obviously do what you do in training and try to build upon the relationship you've already established. But when you get done, coaches, you should also take the time to reflect upon the events that you thought you properly warmed someone up for and you cooled them down for, or the strategy was effective or ineffective. Because again, having a little bit of humility and making sure the athlete knows that this is a working relationship where you're not just, telling them what to do. It's a dictatorship 24/7, but sort of like a democracy back and forth with you tell me what you like, what you don't like is a really important thing to further develop the relationship so that when you go to an event like this, they know that you have their back and that you've done your homework as much as they've been doing their homework kind of in the shadows of the gym.
There's also the element of like, I don't really have an example because this hasn't happened, but again, it's not to, hey, I'm going to do any and everything that you need, athlete. I am your coach. I will do whatever you need. It's more like, hey, what can I do that's within kind of the confines of my responsibilities as an obligation to you to get the most out of you in this competition environment. And if the athlete you need to make sure the athlete is comfortable enough to say, hey, I know what you were trying to do, but I really didn't like the motivational speech sort of thing. Or like, hey, it would be really helpful if you gave me a little bit more kind of specific breakdown of like my warm-up timeline, because I felt like I was cold by the time I got onto the floor. And that was a point I took from myself for the first event. I think I probably we got too warm too quick, and it was the barbell event, and the last thing any athlete wants to do is be standing in a corral cold and then have to go, clean and jerk 90% of their one rep max.
I had a moment like that with Jenna too. The row, swim, run event. She's like, this is at the end of the event. She told me this. This is the first time I was ever on a runner. I didn't know when to turn it on at the end. And I was like, shucks, I'm pissed that I didn't know that's your first time saying. Yeah, that's 100% on me, because I would have said like, hey, having done enough workouts on this and knowing who you are as an athlete, when you see 250 meters left, fucking send it. Now, thankfully, in that event, there was no circumstance there where there was an athlete who beat her out by like a second or two, or like that could have made an event and given her more points. But that's one of those moments at the end where I was like, you know what, that is on me. If something like that happens again, because you told me now that you've never been on one, like, don't be afraid to say those type of things there. And it was funny there, because I had two athletes competing in the same division one another, and they were like kind of asking questions, but like kind of like trying to pull me aside to ask me their question versus like not let their competitor hear it if this, that, or the other was going on. So that's one of those things where building that trust there and finding out those things that you didn't know ahead of time, dig into those things, because that's how you're going to help that athlete make that stride, because you never know how little you can miss by. I think Sophie missed second place in event one by 13/100ths of a second, which is literally like step over the bar faster and hit the buzzer. Nothing to do with her actual fitness.
That happened with us as well.
So I got 3 takeaways from all that. The trust piece is so huge. So Hunter was explaining the sort of this continuum of, he wants an athlete to be over on this side with how they move through their handstand push-ups, and all the way on the other side is how they're currently moving, which is inefficient. The whole take a step or two back to take way more forward is really challenging for athletes. And because I've been thinking so much about camp agenda and what we're going to cover while we're there, my mind goes to, sort of the like problem students that will come to a training camp. And there's a piece of the idea that an athlete would think that one of the 3 of us wouldn't be trying to help them, that we'd be trying to sabotage their movements.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Is a little silly.
Finally caught on.
So what's important from our end to really to be able to sell this thing is to be able to break it down. If there is an athlete who is a student of the game, okay, I'll try it, but why? What is the reason why you want me to do this? Show me the difference between X, Y, and Z. I love that personally. I like being able to say, oh, I didn't think you wanted that information. Turns out I got a 19-step process for this. But then you have other athletes who basically go into a mode of, well, I'm not good at this movement, but it's definitely not my fault. So I'm going to keep doing it that way. Thank you for the information. Maybe I'll teach somebody else to do that. Maybe someday I'll get so upset that I suck so bad at handstand pushups that I will stop doing this. But there's a level of responsibility. It's the same. And that's why we talk about the athlete IQ as a continuum, as all of these things meshing together. Is it tells us a lot about an athlete and where they're at and where that maturity level is at, just in terms of coachability. And again, I don't want the blind following the blind. Like, I don't want someone to come to camp and just nod and smile if they don't understand why it's happening. But all of the stuff that we're working on has been fine-tuned for about 10 years. And it's not a coincidence that the people that are the best at certain movements all move basically the same way, unless they were, a world-class gymnast or something like that. So, that's just what popped into my head, sort of mixing the idea of like, when you buy into something like this, when you buy into actually learning how to not lean back and fry your quads out on a rower, or not overextending on your handstand push-up, or not heaving and catching in your lifts, whatever it is, when you're buying into these things, there is a process where you are literally, your capacity is going to go backwards.
Yeah.
And it has to. We're redeveloping motor recruitment patterns. We're redeveloping musculature, where there's so many things that are happening within that ecosystem that's what's going to take place. But is your frustration with where you're at as an athlete worth more than you being like, I don't want to look bad on my handstand push-ups. I'm a set of 10 guy and now I'm doing sets of 5 in class. Like, are you okay with that? Because that's what it's going to take. And then she bought into what, she bought what you were selling, and that shit takes care of itself.
Yeah, I think it was cool because like it's not like we were like, okay, we started 3 months ago, we've got Wodapalooza in 3 months. The goal is to get your handstand push-ups good by then. It was the Wodapalooza was like, hey, let's see where we're at before the season, because that's the bigger goal is the games. But it's not like I tapered her into like, okay, if your handstand push-ups aren't ready by Wodapalooza, like
find a new coach.
We're gonna abandon ship. It was like, no, you're still like right up until Wodapalooza, like I still want you trying to improve your, like, this is what it should look like. This is where we're trying to get to. We're still 70% of the way there. We're not going to change that. And then lo and behold, when a competition comes around, when we can apply some more intensity, like she was still still significantly improved from when she started, but still not quite exactly where we want to be. But she bought into it. She was, her, like you said, her capacity, she was doing skill pieces and training pieces that are, probably 5 to 10 reps less than she might have otherwise done, because she was focusing on improving her mechanics and she was actually doing it. And then competition time comes and it was like, wow, your handstand push-ups actually have gotten significantly better, and you clearly didn't lose any capacity because you were the only woman to finish the workout.
Right. Yep. Next thing is how the coach-athlete relationship works with dissecting data, because I think there's sort of this continuum that I've been thinking about, and I've got a few posts coming up on probably just on Instagram, but this idea of personalization, strategy, and data. So the personalization thing is obviously much more training based, but when it comes to dissecting strategy and data, the athletes, I think, need to know which information is more for them and which information is more for the coach. So as an athlete, your strategy going into a workout, you need to take the data that you got from that and dissect whether it was a good idea. I tried this thing in this setting. Did it work for me? Do I need to change the way that I do this? Do I need to start sending it sooner? Or, yeah, I went slow at the beginning, but then even though I went fast, I never caught up. I got too far behind, whatever it is, versus a coach looking at it from that 30,000 foot view. Okay, this energy system is not there. This person gets punched in the face and then are supposed to continue this workout for the next couple of minutes, and it's just not there. Those are tweaks that the athlete should know. But again, there's that trust factor of, like, if you have a coach, you go in and say, I want to die on the bike a little bit more often. Or the next time we do bitch work and it's a send piece, can I get off it and do GHD sit-ups or a set of toes to bar? Can we mix in bitch gymnastics just so I know what that like hypoxic, like skin's bone white, it's gone like fluorescent green, whatever color it is, like that sort of thing. I need to know what it feels like to continue to do other movements. And I'm referencing, for the most part, that first workout that the elites did. They basically said it was one of the worst workouts they've ever done, with that heavy sled, double under, buy-in to GHD, and then basically no time to think. You better run down there and flip the sled because the interval's almost over. And you got to run back too. You got to get back to that spot. So I just think it's interesting for an athlete, if you have this like massive amount of information coming out of a competition, pulling out the pieces that are like, this is for training, this is for testing, like really trying to figure out where all of those puzzle pieces go. Because when it comes to how do I actually get better at this thing that I don't think I'm good enough at, like that's on us as your programmers or on someone as your coach.
Yeah, to me, thinking back to the sandbag event for Sophie is a great example of the data that she took and the data that I took were very, very different. The event again was, if I remember correctly, it was a handstand walk, a sandbag carry, a shuttle run, and then you go back through the sandbag carry and the handstand walk. But the thing is that they did heats of it, so you didn't just do it once. And some heats got a little more rest than others. And
was it tournament style?
Yeah, it was like tournament style. So what they did is they ran the boys through 2 heats. They picked the top 5 or top 10, and then the girls did the same thing. And then they put the top 5 boys and 5 girls kind of side by side in that event. And the thing that Sophie picked out there was like, I felt like I couldn't breathe out there as I was working through it. And I'm like, yeah, breathing's definitely a component. The workout's not like 10 seconds. So it's definitely going to have some sort of aerobic component to it. But the thing that she struggled in that event wasn't the handstand walk, wasn't carrying a heavy bag. It wasn't even the run in the event, the shuttle run, which typically running is not a strength of hers. It was recovering from the first time she went through it. And when she had to do it again, she probably had 3 or 4 minutes and she didn't fully recover from there. So she couldn't send it the way she wanted to on her second go. I mean, she still ended up placing well. I think she took like a 3rd or a 4th in the event overall. But the data that she takes from it is like, I struggled with, moving fast the entire time. And I was like, you struggled with recovering between events. So, this gives more evidence to like, hey, we need to spend more time on those C2 bikes and long durations. We need to go for those long runs because that's how you're going to develop the musculature and the aerobic system where you can recover faster, because that was clearly the missing link in the workout. It wasn't that you struggled with any specific skill or you can't go there hard because you did it once really, really well.
Right.
The problem is you couldn't do it a second time because your aerobic musculature and your aerobic functioning is not at the level it needs to be for them to do something like the 2-2-2-3 intervals from the CrossFit games where you get very little rest and you're expected to go at the same output after a very brief hiatus.
Yeah, so two examples on this. One, so Brady, there's a lot more of like a kind of a learning feel to that, whereas I would say Kelly was a little bit more about data collection and kind of like where we're at, whereas again, Brady is like first in-person competition. We're getting the experience. There's a lot of external factors going on. I think the biggest thing is like I'm thinking about the Celebrate 10 workout when he had to overhead squat 165, and he's a smaller athlete. We're still working on getting stronger and whatnot, but there was an element of like, okay, that 165 bar, like he can snatch that totally fine. Before it, I talked to him. I was like, hey, if you can avoid clean and jerking it to like, or getting it onto your back and then getting it overhead, like do that. That's a lot of wasted energy. But that wasn't like, I think he did it like towards the end when he clean and jerked it to the front rack.
Screaming at him.
Like
to clarify, he could not snatch it, and Sherb and I were screaming at him to clean and jerk. Yeah. But because we were miming a shoulder to overhead, he thought we were saying his handstand push-ups weren't good, which like he's cranking out 15 of them every round. Fine. So they were fine. So it's just funny. Like he took your suggestion of don't do it unless you need to as don't do it.
Yeah. It was funny. Afterward, I was like, did I tell you don't clean and jerk? He was like, no. You said avoid it if you have to. I was like, okay, well, I think it was interpreted as you probably won't need to do this. So don't. Right. And it was like, try to squat snatch it, get the first overhead squat taken care of. But we learned that it's still like, that's still not like a gimme weight, so to speak. And there's some other small stuff to, building a little bit more shoulder stability, getting a little bit, frankly, more meat on his bones. And then he also had I'll make fun of him later for this. He failed like a 95-pound snatch to do his overhead squats. And I was like, you fucking jamoke. Like, I'm going to make you do 1,000 of these and run a mile every time you fail one.
He'd probably like that.
Yeah, he probably know. But it was more of like a learning thing. Like, hey, you've got a lot of tools in your toolkit. Don't forget about them. He's somebody who still like gets really frustrated mid workout, and he will put that on display for everybody to see. And that's something that it's like, hey, it's good to be irritated when you're not doing well, good to be, excited when you are doing well, but we gotta contain that. If you put the same energy into like getting angry about missing a jerk at 245 to actually
donating energy to no one when you're doing CrossFit is a bad idea.
Yeah. So those are kind of like that's more of like the the learning side of my weekend for him. For Kelly, one of the things that we've been working a lot on, she's not super comfortable on machines. So you can imagine she's been doing a whole bunch of Maffetone on the rowers and the bikes and the ski ergs. And then we get thrown the assault rower, and we could probably talk a little bit about that because it's like, she's never used it. I'm not super familiar with it. We messed around with it kind of in the back area, but it's effectively a single speed bike. You know, there's one speed. It's it's kind of like rowing on like an 8 damper on the C2. So she's like, what pace should I go at? It's like, well, got to remember, like, you're going 2K, 1600 or 2K, whatever she went, was like the difference of 5 seconds. Even like a 5-second split, like everybody listening can probably knows what the difference in 5 seconds is. It's like, wow, that's significantly easier to go 5 seconds slower. Multiplied by, 2,000 meters is like 20 seconds. And I was like, you're a comfortable swimmer. You're a former water polo player. You can make up time simply by running harder than everybody else from your rower to the water, getting in the water and using the fact that you're comfortable. And then you get out and you're on the runner. So it was, while we are working a lot on the monostructural stuff, there's like, that wasn't the full workout. Like the row was just kind of the buy-in to the rest of the workout. So it's, understanding when to kind of tell her to push it and when to be like, hey, I know we've been working on this and you're nervous about it, but it's not that big of a deal. Go by feel. And then, push your transitions, which people aren't going to think is a major thing. But you can either go 5 seconds per 500 slower on your row and then kind of hustle in your transitions, which sounds a hell of a lot better than rowing 5 seconds per 500 faster and then feeling like ass a third of the way into the workout.
Just goes back to the athlete IQ. I mean, it's one thing that I talked about with the teenagers ahead of the Celebrate 10 was like, think about the entire volume of this workout. Like, I know all of you can do 15 handstand push-ups. You probably can all do 3 muscle-ups over and over again. What's going to happen if you continue to overextend yourself in the handstand push-ups in the first 3 or 4 rounds? Like, Sophie, for example, said before the event, I think I can do these strict. And I was like, I know you can. Is that the smartest play for this workout? Because again, it's not going to be 3 rounds of 15 handstand push-ups per time. There's everything else that's in the event. It's squatting a heavy bar. It's transitioning. It's the compounding effect of muscular fatigue. And one of the lessons we took from the weekend was, I need to further understand a workout ahead of starting it. So I know that like, it does me no good to be in the lead for the first 3 rounds, because one of the things that really troubled her in that workout were the muscle-ups at the very end. And that's because she overextended herself, filled her arms with poison through all those big handstand push-up sets. And then that became getting back to the muscle-ups and kind of punching the forearms, being like, come on, arms, come back to life. And that, again, is an opportunity for an athlete to kind of work with the coach and further understand what a workout is going to feel like because early on, you're going to kick up that wall and be like, man, these feel awesome. How are they going to feel 4 minutes in? And that's part of the job that I see as that. And something I talked with Brady about ahead of the event, because the second he saw row, swim, run, he's like, fuck yeah, I'm winning this thing. And I was like, you know what? We had 333s here, something we did in his event. And I said, you were very confident going to that event. What happened? And it was, he rode at a pace that was probably unsustainable and exploded. So I said the same thing to him going to that event. I said, hey, when you're thinking about this event, the row does matter a little bit. Like, you can't row and finish 3 minutes after everybody else, but like, you're not going to gain all that much. Use your advantage, like you talked to Kelly about. Yeah. And that ended up being a better strategy for athletes. So, if you're not someone that's really good at breaking down a workout, find someone that is, because that's another thing. Not everyone has their own coach, but bounce ideas off your fellow competitors or fellow misfits. And that's another reason, good plug for the Discord. You got a competition coming up. Maybe you throw that out there to the crew and say, hey, what do you guys think is the best strategy here? Because again, enough minds meeting together and coming to a consensus usually will end up being typically a better strategy than you just going, fuck it, let's see what happens. Which I think a lot of Brady's weekend was potentially, let's see where we are versus the field. But obviously we want to have some level of, let's think about these events as well.
Mm-hmm. Ted, are there any famous female comic book characters with the alter ego? I grew up with Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, Peter Parker. Are there any? I'm trying to think. Just 3 dudes. Elektra? No one knew who she was. All right, Elektra. So we're going to throw that into the mix here. My biggest takeaway, and I do believe this deserves its own podcast, is identifying whether you are Bruce Wayne or Batman and which alter ego you need to materialize and create, because we have so many athletes that are one or the other and carry that over too much into the category where it doesn't belong. So for example, you take an athlete, if someone is Batman, not Bruce, doesn't have the Bruce Wayne side of it, they go out there and they have just that like maniacal look on their face, and you know that they showed up to party. Like that's they probably grew up playing sports. They've been in the limelight before. They relish that. That's where that's at. But when it's the fucking grind and it's the day after day and it's this many pieces and it's, the beginning of the phase has lost its glow and whatever it is, have you created that alter ego? Have you created Bruce Wayne that can go in and get that work done so that the other thing can happen? And it really is interesting to me because I think you're
always Batman, you're never Batman.
Sure, but like I think when you're supposed to be who you're supposed to be, everyone inflates that more than they should, right? So like if you are a gamer, if you're someone that goes out there and crushes competition, you're riding that high, you're performing better than you ever have, and you might be getting feedback that is more like you can't pat yourself on the back, or you can't go forward by patting yourself on the back. Like we need to create this other character so that your version of that goes out there and does that wins. The person that puts in the work and then has that just maniacal look on their face is the person that wins year after year, or at least achieves the most that they possibly can. And people don't really understand how and why. So I think a lot of it's personality type, a lot of it's upbringing, a lot of it is experiences that you've been through. And I think if we can, we'll meet about this and do a podcast, but I think if we can give athletes permission to develop this person, fucking name it if you want to go full off the wall crazy about it, create this alter ego and know when it's time to go into the phone booth or the Bat Cave, or I don't know where Peter Parker goes, his bedroom or something. But like know when it's time for that to change, because you being only obsessed with competition definitely bleeds into the gym. And then you being, what unfortunately we called a practice hero when we were younger. Now I wish I was a practice hero, but hindsight's 2020. You carry that over and you're not in the moment. You're not out there like, wait, this is the whole reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why am I going through the motions when I'm out here? And again, there's so many different facets to this, right? There's is there really anything on the line when it's only money? Like, how much do you care about the money for the prizes? Whereas if I don't do well in this workout, I don't get to work out anymore. Like that is how people feel a lot of times in the open, in quarterfinals and semifinals, whatever it is. But when you get to a place where there's no other advancement, or you don't care enough about the prize, that's when you see people go into the mode of, I just like to train.
Running my own race.
I just like to train. I just like to do my own thing. I'm
just here to have fun.
Right. Yeah. That's that sort of thing. And most of that is a defense mechanism. We have met a few people that just want to go out there and compete every once in a while and do their thing, but they're probably not in the elite division. They're not going to the CrossFit games. They're not it's very, very rare for a Kenzie Riley to qualify for all these things by accident and be like, sometimes I believe her when she's like, yeah, just hope I do well. Sounds good. But there aren't really that many people, I think, they're doing that. And you listen to Fraser talk about, did you guys hear the thing where he was talking about how when he gets around the corner from Vellner, he sprints away. He basically is almost walking. If Pat can see him in a running workout, he's sprinting. And then if he gets to go around the bleachers, he toggles it way back. And then because he knows running his own race, quote unquote, would be a steady pace and just trying to push with him there. But he knows Pat might think, I can't catch him, so I just got to stay ahead of this guy behind me. Whereas if he knew that he was fucking walking or barely running when he ran on the corner, you just think of these things and it's like that's when you know you have a concrete example. It's not some dickhead coach that's never competed before saying it to you. It is the guy is saying, run your own race. No. There's a race happening right now, a real one in real life. Like, do you want to win? Like, do you want to try to do that stuff? And that's when you see, you know, I mean, you could tell that he helped Medeiros quite a bit with how much he was looking around in a lot of the workouts to see where he was at and when he needed to push and when he didn't and all that. So, yeah, the alter ego thing is what's been percolating during this episode. And I really think that there's something to like a person realizing that this is my natural setting, but all that stuff is like, I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but it's conditioning. Like you
practice.
You were conditioned to be that way. It wasn't like you weren't like, you didn't come out the womb.
Oh, I was saying like you have to practice this type of this.
Exactly. So if you want to condition yourself, yes, you need to practice in that opposite direction.
Yes.
Whichever side that you gravitate towards, you need to create. Like, I don't know, what's a boring version of my name? Andy? Like Andy's got to go over to the gym and do his C2 stuff. I'm sorry if your name's Andy. It's just the relation between Andrew and Drew. I'm sensitive about that. My name's not fucking Andrew. Andy's gotta go do Maffetone. I'm sorry. I can't be in this meeting. Andy's gotta go over there and do fucking.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about it. Like, it's the switch, right? It's flipping the switch when it comes time for the open. It's like you have to give yourself permission to, when it is, you know, Friday of 2022.1 or quarterfinals or semifinal event 1, like, you need to walk through the doors like you own the fucking place. Or
like, oh shit, Terry's here.
Yeah.
Like, who's Terry? That's
office linebacker.
Sherb's alter ego.
Terry.
Oh shit. Like if it was
definitely-
Terry the Hunter
Terry
in the open,
Oh, damn.
you'd be in trouble.
I'd be in trouble. I am in trouble now. That is Terry.
Holy shit. I'm making a Terry jersey for the open. Terry.
Fuck. What were you saying, Hunter?
Nah, that was it. That was good.
All right, we'll find
What
a
about
Terry
you,
jersey.
Coach?
What's that?
What about you?
What
got
about
any,
me?
What's your debrief? What's your debrief?
I sneak
system
my
look like?
debriefs into what I'm already talking about, as opposed to like, this person did this person did that.
Yeah.
I want, when I'm debriefing with an athlete specifically, when I'm debriefing with someone at work, I want to create a scenario where they feel comfortable and they really tell me what they think about the whole shebang. And I can pick the pieces out that are like, this is recency bias, you're emotional about this, I'm glad you care, thumbs up.
Yeah.
But like if you're debriefing with someone about something, controlling the conversation is not a great direction to go. You know, more mirroring, more things of that nature, where you're really opening everything up. Like, hey, it's only a few times a year where we really break down, like how are your energy systems? What is your mindset like? You know, what's going on here? What's going on there? Why do you think this happened? Why do you think that happened? And when it comes to an athlete, hopefully you've developed this level of rapport with them already, but you in a debrief have to, at all costs, make the athlete comfortable with telling you where they're at with stuff, because that's where you get the gold. You don't understand the mindset of what happened within this piece, or you don't understand this strategy, and there was this element that you didn't know about that you never would have considered. It never would have popped into your head. And you're not going to get those things unless you can create like a trusting type of relationship where you can go through that stuff. So I think using the information that you get from a debrief is something that we've been doing for so long that it's fairly straightforward, but pulling out useful information as opposed to like, oh yeah, we all saw that you got too far behind, you know, 45 seconds is too far behind in a buy-in on a 6-minute workout. That's not the craziest stuff in the world to try and figure out. You got to remember it. You got to remember to do that stuff, but really trying to get people to tell you what's actually going on and have them dig a little bit, I think is the way that you figure out the types of things that move the needle in like a really, really big way.
Yeah, the prompts that I gave my athletes after the weekend was to do that. Like, I don't want to be monopolizing the conversation when we're having these debriefs. I basically just want to be a shoulder to like listen and not necessarily cry on, but like listen to what you have to say and be like, all right, what did you take?
I've never
away
heard
from
that
this?
saying before.
I don't know,
Shoulder to listen on?
I think I butchered it pretty badly, but
It's better. It's better that way.
yeah, I think it's
Cry.
better that
Cry
way.
on Terry's
Can I tell
shoulder.
Terry to kick your
Tell-
ass after this podcast?
It's gonna throw you through a fridge. But
It's going to be a me, myself, and Irene situation.
right.
We're creating
snapping into it.
creating a monster here.
But I do think it's important that, what you said is really highlighted there, that you take the time to let that athlete process it. And, some athletes are going to do that in the confines of their own cave and, will come to you when they've kind of reached a conclusion, and other athletes literally want to talk their way through that. So, I think it's an important thing that they know that you can be that person they can talk to about this, and that you're not judging them, and that it comes from a space of we're in this together and we want to see you succeed. So let's figure out what the bigger evils are across the season, the event, the week, whatever it is, so you can really dive into that stuff, because I do think that's where most of that relationship building that happens between an athlete and a coach occurs, is when they feel like they can tell you anything and there's nothing that gets held back because they're worried that they might look foolish or that you might judge them.
I think, one other component of the debrief is, I take a similar approach where I try to talk almost as little as possible. I'll provide my feedback as to what I saw, if it was any different. But a lot of the times, especially if an athlete's serious about it and they have the wherewithal to pay enough attention to how they performed or how relative to their own expectations and the field, is that they pick out most of the things that you are maybe you had notes. Because I have a little note on my phone that's here's a bunch of notes from the weekend, and I use those as kind of that's sitting on my computer while I'm listening to the athlete talk to me, and it's just yep, they found that, they found that, they found that.
Yeah.
And then there's a few of them that are maybe more nuts and bolts sort of thing that I'm just I'm just going to make sure this gets into the program. They're not going to, it's not even worth mentioning. It's just something that I noticed that I'm going to make sure that they do, and they'll never know the difference. So it's it's more just, hey, be able to confirm what they are believing. Because a lot of times athlete intuition is pretty close to right. And you can think about that from a, pre-event perspective, where pretty much any time I had a conversation with them, either of my athletes, about how to approach the workout, they were on the right path. It's okay, I'm thinking row at a pace that doesn't fuck me up, because it doesn't matter that much, and they just need confirmation from you that is in fact accurate and confident. And it's you can do a lot for an athlete by giving them the confidence, hey, yes, correct, good job, you have the ability to make that decision for yourself, so that if there comes a point in the workout, or maybe you're doing something and something that we didn't talk about specifically, the athlete has that confidence to make that judgment call on their own. The relationship should never be a one that's I can only do what my coach told me to do. If something outside of the confines of those parameters, I freeze. It's you have to enable the athlete to make those decisions for themselves, and a lot of times that's giving them the confidence that their own intuition is accurate, pre or post event.
True.
Bard.
Final thoughts?
Those were mine.
Final thoughts. If you're a serious competitor, you need to find yourself a competition like Wodapalooza to practice this type of stuff. I think a lot of athletes appreciated the opportunity to go in there with a lot of no stakes really on the line other than some prize money. Specifically see you have the big shiny object, which is the CrossFit Games that you're trying to get back to. And you wonder, once that event is over, if you qualify, do you have what it takes to get back there again? And using an event like Wodapalooza or, Granite Games or whoever we decide the season goes these days, having an event like that is a great opportunity for an athlete to check in and to practice this type of stuff. So if you have the opportunity to sign yourself up for something like this, where you can go against a decent amount of your fellow competitors that you'll be competing against, if you make it back to Madison, do it. I just think there's so much value in an event like this, even despite all the things that could have gone better at Wodapalooza from the event, that some things that were in their control, some things that were out of their control, the opportunity to go and learn from something like this is very hard to replicate in training. So if you have the opportunity to go do one of these things, my advice is to go sign yourself up for one.
Yeah. it's definitely a good there. Even if you're treating a competition like that as a tune-up, so to speak, that shouldn't relinquish you from trying to do the best that you possibly can. Like there's a difference between like I'm just here to have fun and this is a tune-up, but I need to try. Like I need to get after it a little bit. And then to your point, like there are a lot of things that you don't think about that occur in a competition that you won't know unless you do it. Example, short bar. Brady's never used a short bar before. Short bar is really hard to use in like any Olympic lift because you don't realize how much whip that gigantic barbell has until you don't have it anymore. Right. So super small example, but like that's a good one. They're depending on what venue you're going to, like a 100 meter run might be a 300-foot shuttle, and that's a hell of a lot different than just 100 meters straight. Right. So those are like two small examples, but the point is that unless you are getting yourself out onto the competition floor regularly, assuming that is, what you are trying to pursue, you're missing out on a lot of necessary experience to take yourself to the next level. So I think that's probably just an extension of what you said, but the number of factors that come into play within a competition, whether it's when's my heat time? When do I get corralled? When should I start warming up? Those things are not things that anybody is thinking about in training. It's like, I'll warm up kind of on my own time. I'll start the workout when I feel good after I take my bathroom break. It's like, no, that shit's dictated for you to the point where if you aren't competent yourself and you just don't have a coach with you, or you have a coach who can help you do those things, like they're just things that you're not going to get experience wise until you put yourself out there in a big competition like that. Wodapalooza is great because there's like literally any human on the planet will probably fall into one of those divisions and be able to
except compete. For me, but yeah.
Except for you, but yeah.
I'll go off the elemental chart.
I know. Yes.
So far off that it's not even
Terry's
on
gonna throw you through the fridge.
Terry,
easy, Terry.
You got about 60 seconds before Terry comes
Holy
over
shit.
there.
All right. He'll like this. Thank you to everybody for stopping by the booth. It was cool to see everybody. And then
you bought yourself 30 seconds.
Life advice. You get to Wodapalooza and you've been there 5 or 6 times and you get slotted back into, I've been here before. I know what this is like. I've had this experience, but you actually haven't had anything similar for 2 years. Everything that we did, sort of the time frame, the amount of interactions, like that kicks my ass. That absolutely kicks my ass. And then you find yourself, trying to sort of make up for that and not being in the moment. You get home and you're like, shit, let's go back to Miami and have that conversation that I didn't have, or make sure that this happens or that happens, or make sure you connect with this person. So as we're coming out, hopefully, I think maybe of the pandemic, and you're having life experiences that you haven't had in a while, just like make the most of that shit. Don't go back into status quo. Like really think about like, would I have wanted to do, will I want to do this differently once I am back in my cozy little, whatever. I don't know how cozy it is here right now. It's negative 6,000 degrees. Cozy. Not complaining about winter though, it's just an anecdote. So I think my main takeaway from like a lifestyle perspective is sometimes sleep a little bit less. Sometimes go to Yardbird and get the right food. Sometimes
food.
Like have those, like make sure you're having those experiences.
I pay $44 for a goddamn chicken. I expect them to bring me the correct number of bags before I get in my car and walk away.
I didn't even get my grits after you went back. That's some bullshit.
That is true.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast.
Except
and thank you to our show sponsors, properfuel.co. The morning chalk up article about how amazing creatine is. We already told you that. It's in our pre-workout. It's in our recovery product, properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save on your first order. Sharpentheaxe.co.com. Use the code word Keala, Keala. You save 10%. We donate 10% to the Keala Foundation. Pure Spectrum CBD, purespectrumcbd.com. Use the code word Misfit to save on any and all orders. And as always, I am at Misfit Coach on Discord.
Ooh.
I want to be able to use my damn keyboard, my actual keyboard. I guess you can do that on Instagram.com and a web browser. send me a DM in Discord.
Instagram.com. Fuck.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
a
a
thing?
thing.
Is that a place?
Yeah, you can go there. Okay, see you next time.
Peace.